Hello, Senior Stoner fans. The real Senior Stoner back at you for your dip of the day. Today is Saturday. Hello, everybody. Hope you're starting off your weekend well. Well, as you know, I may be heading for another surgery, my third spinal surgery. But you know what? It's a beautiful day here in New Jersey. Mrs. Stoner's around, my daughter's around. It's good to be alive. And, you know, in the face of all these things that befall us, and sometimes, like I've talked about, it's a merry-go-round. Sometimes it just keeps coming. We have to keep going. There is no choice. You know, they made suicide illegal for a reason. Okay? Because truly, and I mean this truly from all the situations that I've ever heard of afterwards, when people talk about it, think about it, people made the wrong decision. There was another way. So I'm trying not to get too down. That's hint number one. Let's try not to be too down about these types of things. I told you my style, and I hope that's your style too. That's the head-on approach. Take it straight on. Now, historically, my approach is to defeat these things, to knock them down, go through them, go over them, go around them, break it. Sometimes, and I'm 62 years old now, sometimes we have to realize we can't. That doesn't mean we failed. We are not failures because we can't move things like this. Sometimes things happen that you need help. Sometimes you need psychological help. Sometimes you need first aid. Or sometimes you need medical help. And in this case, it looks like I'm going to need surgical help. Now, for me personally, that's an extremely frightening thing. Because I've had two that have failed. Because both processes in the hospital were extremely painful for me. And I have great fear. But, and here's the but, I have to balance my fear with the reality of what the outcome could be. For example, when I do my Ben Franklin T-square, fear comes into play with surgery and without surgery. Your fear of pain and aftermath and maybe something getting worse with surgery, how about the fear of things getting worse just living? You know, instead of needing a needle every 6 weeks to 2 months, I'll need a needle every 3 weeks. I don't know if that's a way to live. That's why I've got to construct T-square and do the advantages and disadvantages and really figure it out. You know, when my son was looking at colleges, he had it narrowed down to one or two, I think two. And we did a Franklin T-square and it helped him. I was working for a company for many years and was offered another job by another company. It's called one in the hand, two in the bush. But I had to do a Ben Franklin T-square to determine if it was going to be all the beneficial it looked like. So a lot of times, things seem great at the onset. Things seem horrible at the onset. We have to see how it goes. I'm truly, even though you're into talking about it and sharing, I'm a couple of days into knowing about it, and I'm really not even on my journey yet to determine what I'm going to do. All that being said, what you need to do while all this is happening is go on with your life. My life includes Jimmy Joint in the jacuzzi. Therapeutic, and also the pleasure principle. So you're catching two birds with one stone in this case. What I'm going to try to do, and I recommend in situations like this, is instead of necessarily going one step at a time, I'm going to slow it down if I can, if I have time. In other words, if I'm not grabbed by another pinched nerve and driven by Mrs. Stoner to the hospital to meet this doctor, I want to do it on my own timing, which means the process of decision making has to be my own timing as well. So as I said, instead of taking one step at a time, which I always talk about, how about taking baby steps? In other words, quell the fear. You know, if you're going in for a surgical procedure, they always ask you, do you have an infection? Because they want you to take care of the infection before you have the surgery so there are less complications. In this case, the baby steps are necessary for me because I want to quell my fears. I want to read, I want to look at things and understand more about what's going to happen to me. The odds are in my favor dramatically, but I tend to catastrophize even a small percentage of real negative. And I think anybody would say to themselves, well, that 5% could be me. You know, the 5% that end up not walking after the operation. So, it's not a clinical thing right now for me. I've already had the clinical thing. And I'm going to go to more doctors and have the clinical thing. For me, it's being able to be comfortable in my skin and not feeling like I've failed and feeling like I'm dirty. Now, I know that sounds weird to you all, but considering I was beaten as a child, I am told that I have what's called learned helplessness, which means that when something bad happens, it's automatically the worst thing that ever happened. So I try to work through this situationally every time it happens. And unfortunately, this is one of those times. And unfortunately, instead of being catastrophizing about my car, I'm catastrophizing about the core part of my body, my spine. You see, Dr. Google's not a good thing. Because when things get worse in the areas that I got problems, you become incontinent. You can't control your bowels. I mean, I don't even want to tell you the things that are attached to what I've got going on. And I worry about it. So the small steps are necessary for me to clear aside all this bullshit that I think about, okay? Because if I was to say that in front of a doctor, even my therapist, they'd say, come on, Senior Stoner, it's you. You know, you're catastrophizing. Did anybody tell you that's going to happen? Okay. Guess what? I bet we all do it. I bet we all do it. Nobody marches into the operating room saying, hey, Doc, how are you? Let's go. I highly doubt that. You know, if you got too sensitive a brain that you do that in these types of situations. So, listen, it's about super deluxe Jimmy joints. Now, I have to describe, I think, again, this Jimmy joint. Ready? 10 joints, 1 gram of distillate in a syringe. Not just a swipe of distillate, 3 swipes. Then I take a gram of Moon Rock between 10 joints. Then I take a gram of THCA diamonds and spread that on the 10 joints. And then I take a little taste. Emerald used to say, a little bam will kick it up a notch. And that was the Keith. And of course I used garlic breath weed, which is some of the strongest weed I've ever had. That's what my grower says. Literally one of the strongest he's ever had. So, what's that all gonna do? Is it gonna solve my back problem? Is it gonna solve world peace? No. But it's gonna put a damn good tool in my hand to take it down a notch. Not gonna cure anything, but I want to take it down a notch. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you just have to realize you're not curing yourself. Take it down a notch. That's something you can do. Okay? This is the Real Senior Stoner, hoping that I and you all can take it down a notch when you need to. Cheers, everybody.